Alright, here we are on P10. Our goal here for this video is to solve quadratic equations using the quadratic formula. And here, the quadratic formula is very simple. And if you overcomplicate it, there's two or three places that you can overcomplicate it. So my suggestion is to follow each example and pay attention to the little tidbits that I give in each example. I'm going to try and put notes off to the side as we go through and do that to help clarify some of the confusion that I see. So the quadratic formula, it states, so the quadratic formula, the way it says if ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, then x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And I'm going to show you how we use this. So the very first thing is that we need to get everything set equal to 0, just like we saw in P9. Number 2, I'm going to determine A, B, and C. 3, I'm going to set up what I'm going to call the blanks, or the blank formula with nothing but parentheses. And then 4, I want to simplify. And when we simplify, we're just going to do one step at a time, and it's only going to take us four steps at most, and they're all going to be fairly easy. So let's try this with an example here. The first example we're going to get is 2x squared plus 3x minus 20 equals 0. Now, everything's already set equal to 0, so I'm good there. Now I want to determine what's A, B, and C. So I'm going to go to the side. I'm going to write A, B, and C. All right, so A is always the number in front of x squared. So x squared here, I have a number in front is 2. So my A value is 2. B is the number in front of x, and that in this instance is a positive 3. And C is the number by itself. And here, for this example, it's going to be negative 20. Now I want to set up my blanks, and here's what I mean by that. X equals, everywhere I have an A, B, or C in the formula, I'm going to put blank parentheses. So, there's a dump truck passing by. It's really interesting when you do these things outside. Alright, so X equals the opposite. Now, instead of B, I want to have blank parentheses. The opposite of B plus or minus the square root. And then we have b squared, so parentheses squared minus 4 times ac. So I need parentheses all over 2a. Now the reason why I use parentheses is that it helps determine what's negative and what's not. And there's always going to be a negative in front of these first parentheses. So instead of you trying to keep track in your mind of the negative turns into a positive, don't do all that. If you just simply plug the numbers that you get right here where they belong, then everything's going to be just fine. So let's start off with A. Well, A is going to be this guy here. So there's my A, and in this example, A is going to be 2. So I have a 2 here and a 2 here. And then I'm done with him. B is 3. Well, B is going to be this first one, so I put a 3 here and a 3 here. And I'm done with him. And C is negative 20. So I want to sneak negative 20 in that spot for C. Okay? Now I'm going to do one step of simplification, and I don't want to do a whole lot. So here's my division, and I like to start off on the bottom because it's really easy. 2 times 2 is 4. And then I can look here. The opposite of positive 3 is going to be negative 3, plus or minus. Now we get our square root house together. 3 squared is 9. And here's where I'm a little bit different than some people. Some people like to say minus and then multiply these three numbers. I like to look at this as negative 4 times 2 times negative 20. So negative 4 times 2 times negative 20. Well, I'm going to do that off on the side. So I know that 4 times 2 is 8. And then I'm going to do 20 times 8. And 8 times, so 0, it's 160. And a negative times a negative is positive. So I want to put a positive 160 here. So from my blanks to my first step of simplification, I got rid of this parenthesis. I made sense of this first part in front of the plus or minus, multiplied the denominator, I squared this guy, and I multiplied negative 4 times A times C. All right, now, on our next line, all we have to do is add these numbers on the inside. 9 plus 160, well, that's not a very difficult one. All over 4. All right, nothing else changed. The negative 3 plus or minus the square root, all over 4. Nothing changed except for 9 plus 160. Well, 9 plus 100, oh, excuse me, the square root of 169, you could do this in your calculator, or you could find, just if you like memorizing numbers, the square root of 169 is 13. So now we get x equals negative 3 plus or minus 13 all over 4. And now this is going to break into two different parts. We have to deal with the plus, and then we have to deal with the minus. So negative 3 plus 13 is 10. Negative 3 plus 13 is 10, and again it's going to be divided by 4. Negative 3 minus 13 is negative 16. And now I want to simplify each one of these. Well, 10 and 4 both reduce by 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And 5 and 2 do not reduce any further. So that's my first answer. Negative 16 divided by 4, well, they both go in, 4 goes into both of them. Well, not only that, but 16 divided by 4, we already know is 4. And so this is going to give me a negative 4. And those are my answers. All right, let's do one more example. And this time on the next example, here's what I want you to pay attention to. Setting up the blanks, and then this step of simplification. Whenever I simplify from the first step to the second step, I'm doing three things, really. Well, four things if you want to be technical about it. I'm making sense of the negative situation here. I'm squaring this number, whatever it may be. I multiply negative 4 times A times C. And I multiply 2 times A in the denominator. Right, so 1, 2, 3, 4 things that I do on that first step. And then from here to here, it's just one thing. Here to here, it's only one thing. And then once I have numbers, then it's going to break into two different ones. All right, so let's take a look at another example here. Yeah, I got paint on my table. You just found that out. All right, so in another example, we have 2x squared minus 7x minus 13 equals negative 10. All right. Well, it's not set equal to 0, so I have to get it set equal to 0 first. So I'm going to start by adding 10 to both sides. Now that's going to go away, and the whole thing will be set equal to 0. I get 2x squared minus 7x. Negative 13 plus 10 is negative 3. Now that everything's set equal to 0, I'm going to determine my a, b, and c. Well, a is the number in front of x squared, and here, again, it's 2. B is the number in front of x, and here, b is going to be negative 7, and c is going to be negative 3. Now I want to set up my blanks. So here we go. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And now I plug my numbers in. A is 2, and that's going to go here and here. So I'm done with my A. B is negative 7, and that guy goes here and here. I'm done with him. And C is negative 3, and he only goes right here. So I'm done with him. All right, so the four things. Remember those four things that we're going to do here. Go ahead and set up your division bar. The easiest of those four things is dealing with this guy down here. 2 times 2 is 4. Done. Got him. Negative 7 is a positive 7. Square root. So now I have those two things done. The next one is negative 7 squared is a positive 49. If you ever end up with a negative right here, we're not doing it right. And now negative 4 times 2 times negative 3. Well, a negative times a negative is positive. And 4 times 2 times 3. Well, 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 3 is 24. All right, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4 things that we're going to do on this first step. And now this next step is really easy. Add 49 plus 24. So 7 plus or minus the square root all over 4. So 49 plus 24 is 73. And now I'm going to try it in my calculator. The square root of 73. And the square root of 73 is not pretty. It's not nice. It doesn't simplify into a whole number or anything. So here, I'm actually done. There's nothing else that I could possibly do. Since the square root of 73 doesn't reduce, I am finished.